Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside the Score. Today I wanted to discuss a sample library, specifically a string library that I'm very fond of, and it's my workhorse string library. I go to it for about 90% of my string work, and if you haven't seen the title yet, we're going to be talking about Berlin strings by Orchestral Tools. And so let's quickly play through a cue I wrote with just Berlin strings and a little bit of piano, okay? Okay, so there's the track. So let me pull open the instance here. So here we have all the instrument groups. So we have violins 1, violins 2, violas, celli, and the basses. These are all the legato patches. So before I talk about the composition itself, let me go over Berlin strings just a little bit. So it was recorded in the Teldec studio in Berlin, which is known for not being too wet or too dry, and we're talking in terms of reverberation here. So for me, the amount of reverb on these samples is ideal, and it's very, very pristine. The quality of the samples itself is very clean, and you can hear all the detail from the instruments themselves. In a studio like Erlenhurst, for example, in London, it's interesting because those tails are quite long, and so even though you can make the reverb less on the GUI, it's a little bit, it's not as realistic because the reverb's already baked into the samples, And so for Berlin strings, the thing that stood out to me right away was the sheer purity of the samples, and also the vibrato styles are very Hollywood style and very lush and just so beautiful. So let me just go over these just a little bit. You can see here we have without vibrato, there's romantic vibrato, which is a little bit of vibrato like the medium setting, and then strong is for the most emotional passages. So romantic sounds a little bit like this. And let me play strong here. Right? So very lush and very emotional. Romantic, I feel, does the best for most applications, so I usually stick with romantic. Now, the standout feature here that Orchestral Tools came up with is the adaptive legato system. And so you can see here there's 3 different types of legatos. There's a slur legato, agile legato, and fast runs. Slur legato is activated when you're playing relatively slow lines. And so here you can hear the legato transitions quite clearly, and it's very nice. Agile legato is for slightly faster lines. So legato transitions are slightly quicker, right? And then for fast runs, obviously, when you're playing quickly, this activates those very quick transitions. And you might have heard in there quite a few little intonation issues, a little bit of tuning issue. That's something that Orchestral Tools actually kept in on purpose to add a bit of realism and a human element to the samples. So as we know, a string section in real life cannot play everything perfectly, especially when they're playing fast runs like scales or ostinato things. It's just not going to be perfect all of the time. And so to make this decision to keep in these blurred intonations, as they call it. I really like that. So that's all just in the legato patch, you know? And if we take a look at these strings patch lists here for each instrument, you can see there's a number of patches. So you can look at all these articulations, and you can find these on their website as well. So each instrument has their own share of articulations here, right? The violins have the most, clearly. And then violins 2 sounds like this. So there's the violins 2, and then let's take a look at the violas. Right, so there we go for the violas and the celli. And then for the basses, finally. So very strong. Love it. Love the tone of that. Yeah, so for me, there are two main factors that help me in determining whether I enjoy a library or not. Number one is the sound quality, so how clean the samples are, how much detail you can hear from them, and number two is the amount of reverb, the natural reverb from the samples. So for me, Berlin Strings is both a very pure sound, but also the reverb is ideal, and it's a perfect amount of reverb time for me personally. Let me just go over a couple other patches here in the violins one. So we have obviously more articulations we haven't looked at yet. And so we have here tremolo. So let's see what that sounds like. So this actually has a huge dynamic range. Right? So again, you can really hear the bow going back and forth on the string. Very, very pure sound. And then the spiccatos. Okay, so there we go. And now here we have the Trills Orchestrator. Now the great thing about the Trills Orchestrator is that instead of having to play your own notes back and forth, for example, choosing a short patch like a staccato patch and just playing the notes back and forth, instead you can hold down a note and then hold down another note above it, and the system will actually play the trill, the pre-recorded trill for you. And then that was the whole step. We can also do half step. Right? So it's really cool. You can do this on any key within the violin's range, really. Yeah, I love that Taldeck sound. Great. And then we also have the pizzicato. Cool. And let me also actually pull in one more patch here. Berlin Strings also comes with runs. So we have scale runs up, and we also have scale runs down. So let's load in these two. Okay. So I'll just set the routing. Great. Okay, so starting with the runs up, the red section here selects what key you're in. So right now we're in C major. Let's see if we can play that actually. Oh, there we go. Right? So whatever scale or whatever note you're going to play, it's going to play that key's ascending scale. Right? Now, if I change the key, let's say I went to F major, then you can hear that B flat in there as the scale ascends. It basically goes from C to C, but with a B flat at the top. And then that's regular F major. If we did it on E, so it's still in the key of F major, but it's just starting on E and ending on E, right? So it's really cool. If you play a note that's not in F major, like like E flat, for example, it's not going to trigger any scale. And then it's the same concept for the ones going down. So let's see. Now let's change the key to, let's say, A major. Yeah, so that's the idea. So yeah, I would say Berlin Strings is a very complete library. If you like the tone of it and you really enjoy the teledeck sound, then I would definitely give this a consideration. One downside to this library is that it is enormous and it uses a lot of RAM. So for me personally, I have a MacBook Pro from 2012 and it's starting to get a little bit old and it's a little bit taxing on the system. But the best thing to do really is just go here and purge your samples after they've been loaded up. So then you're only activating the ones that you're currently using, you know? And so that will help you save some RAM. In any case, that is Berlin Strings. Thank you so much for watching this video. And please let me know if you have any thoughts, any comments. Also, please let me know in the comments below what your favorite string library is. If you've been looking at any that you've been interested in, or you know, some that you're considering, I'd like to know, and tell me why you're thinking about those libraries. Okay, great. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, guys.